let's take a look at what's going on in the market here. Just a record up move continues. It's the sheer point movement and percentage movement too, by the way. It's unprecedented in the markets. If we look at, this is a 10-year, if we scale back, everybody was saying how big of an up move our 2016 election was, and back in October of 2014 we had a big up move. We had a couple of mini market crashes, I guess, in 2015 and 2016. Pale in comparison to the type of up move we're getting right now. And even if you go back to 2008, it pales in comparison to what we've had here for an up move. So just a historic up move here in the markets from a point standpoint, from a percentage standpoint. If we take a look at what we have from a price pattern standpoint, we expected, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more, I more or less expected last week that we would come into the previous high here, which is just over 2,800 in this U pattern. That would be fairly typical from a price pattern standpoint. I didn't think it would come that fast when we were back here just because of the sheer magnitude of the move. But from a price pattern standpoint, this is still making sense. I wouldn't be surprised, especially this morning, right? We're up about 16 in the futures. Likely we're going to try and test this area here. From there, we should get some sort of a sideways consolidation. If you look here, we had what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so about a 6 or 7 day sideways consolidation here. We had a 5 or 6 day or 4 or 5 day sideways consolidation here. And if you run the flag patterns out, we're due for a sideways consolidation pretty much, at this 2,800 range, maybe a touch higher. And we also have our first real formidable resistance level that we've had since we've broken this level down here. And that's going to be at 2,850. That should definitely pull us into at least a short-term pullback in the market or a sideways move, consolidation of I would think at least 7 or 8 days before we would push any higher than that. With the strength of this move, I think we're eventually well, put it this way, a little bit longer term, I'm very bullish on the market. I do think eventually we're going to see previous highs. I do think we're going to get a sideways consolidation before we get there. It doesn't mean we have to see it. As we know, we've been getting crazy moves here. I would consider things to be maybe a little bit irrational. If we start closing up over, what's this here, 2817, I would start to consider that irrational exuberance in the market. I'd be trading small, I'd be bearish in my subjective positions at that point. So at least short term, right? Make no mistake, longer term, we're still looking bullish here. So that's what I see for the SPX. If we take a look at, let's just go to the NDX for now. And we take a look at this move here. This isn't that big a move for the NDX, right? It's still a historic move, but it's not, for a percentage standpoint, it's not that bad. We are starting to flatten out. We've been flattening out on the NDX for a while. Looks like we're going to break over that with the gap up this morning of 60. I wouldn't be surprised to see us as high as 7,200, 7,210. If the other indexes flatten out, chances are this will flatten out also, and this breakout will fail and run into more of a sideways move. If they hold, then we're looking at maybe holding up into here. Same thing. I mean, this has been consolidating sideways here for what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 8 or 9 days here. So this is primed that it could go higher. If we look at what's going on in the Russell here, same type of thing, historic up moves. We were, once we had this breakout a week ago, last Friday, more or less expecting a move up into this range here, potentially a move up into 1,600, which it looks like we're probably going to get that today, off what appears to be is going to be a gap up for the markets. Again, this is an extremely steep trend line. I'd expect, coming into this formidable resistance area, that we break this trend line, probably test the pink trend line, and then move higher from there. So same scenario here. I would tend to fade this gap up this morning and expect a trend line break and at least a temporary pullback before moving higher in the index. Looks like this is probably going to be fishing for all-time highs eventually, a little bit later on in the year also. But those are my thoughts on the market. And I believe that's all the indexes except for, I guess, the Dow, where we are experiencing a very similar situation here, right? We poked up over this area here on Friday. We have another resistance area up here at 26.3. We have a gap up of about 200 points. That's not going to be too far from 26.3, right? And I would expect that to try and stall a little bit there. It looks like Dow's going to be breaking all-time highs here in the next probably 30 days or so. So we'll see what happens there, depending on how long this anticipated sideways consolidation lasts. Of course, as new information comes in the charts, our opinion changes, but that's what we're thinking right now. That any up move here early in the week is going to be sold off later in the week, and bearish for the week, but longer term, very bullish. Andrew's sending a note here. 1500 to 1600 was an area where the rut spent a lot of time both last year and the year before, so it should act that way now too. We shall see. One would think so if the market is somewhat rational, that we will spend some time here. Yeah, so even if you look here, right, this is a fairly, or should be, a fairly significant area in the rut, right? We had definitely some resistance here. We had some trouble. We broke down from it. This should be a area of some importance. So that's as high as what? Actually, I'm a little high there, but that's as high as about 1610. Those are my thoughts on the marketplace.